Hey, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the Brown Gent. I've got some crazy updates for you guys. So much so that I actually had to create a second video to cover one specific topic. But before we get into all of it, just remember, I'm not a financial advisor, so please do your own research. I'm just a guy on YouTube. And if you want extra coaching, guidance, and support, we have the Web3 Secret Society, our private group for all that coaching and good stuff. So the first thing that is top of mind, and it's been quite a discussion since they announced it, is around the data ownership protocol. So there's a couple of things I want you to know about this. Number one, you can now claim your DOP token. And I believe the minimum was around 400, but you should know that this happened on the Ethereum mainnet, which unfortunately means that you will not likely be able to get away with not paying a bunch of gas. I paid about 12 bucks. So if your amount is low, you may want to consider waiting until you find out what the price is. So the team is working on a listing. Until they do so, they are not allowing anyone to transfer any tokens, apparently as part of the agreement. So some of us who have multiple test wallets where we may have farmed data ownership protocol or the DOP token, well, we can't move them yet. Also, you guys should know the pre-sale price was around 8 cents. So just keep that in mind so that you don't sort of qualify and get a small amount of tokens that are worth 20 bucks, pay 12 to claim. Because remember, there's also a swap fee. So keep that in mind. I'll sort of keep my eyes peeled. And one more thing I do want to mention is just around the number of tokens. So I got 748. And I was curious because we did some Galaxy campaigns for 4 weeks. So in the Discord, I asked those questions, and basically they said, well, you know what? This was not included. So apparently there may be, or they didn't say it, but they implied that there would be another allocation for those Galaxy quests. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. So I'm sorry, I was talking and it didn't move the slides forward. Basically, I've included some links below that can help you. The next thing I want to talk about is Jupiter. So as you know, Jupiter has started their governance, and the third vote went up earlier today. So if you haven't done it already, make sure you go on and vote. It doesn't matter what you vote for. If you're not sure, just vote abstain. You might as well do something, because at least that way, you're not impacting the protocol, but you got your vote in. Now, one thing I want to highlight, I brought this up before, is that we have 4 billion Jupe tokens that are allocated every single year. So 1 billion Jupiter tokens will be given every January 31st until they run out. The first set went out 2 months ago. The next set will go out in 10 months. So do your governance, and beyond that, make sure you're in Jupiter and using their functionality. So I recommend those who haven't done it already do at least one regular swap, push a ton of volume through limit orders. I know a lot of you who use Solana, well, you do a lot of trading. You might as well use Jupiter as your main hub for that. Use DCA at least once, use bridging at least once, and use perpetuals at least once. That's kind of what I've done, and I focused on limit orders. I think I'm somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000 worth of trades in this. So that's one thing. The next thing I want to talk about as it relates to Solana is the price of Dog with Hat, or WIF. This is the premier meme coin. And one of the things I want to reflect here is, I know a lot of people will just say, hey, I don't want to get into this meme. It's all kind of gotten much bigger, but this is really like the king of memes on Solana. And what's really cool about it is when you hold a position, so I hold a position in WIF token, you actually get airdrops all the time from random projects just because you're holding that main token. So here's a free $100 that I got just yesterday for holding WIF. And my position size at the time was like 2,000 bucks. This is before it went up from 3 to 4. So something for you to keep in mind. The next thing I want to talk about is Cosmos. So as you guys know, I made a somewhat controversial video just last week talking about Cosmos. But most people who commented on it, or not most people, but some people were not aware that, I've made videos in the past talking about why I'm betting on the Cosmos ecosystem. This is a token that I was holding in the 40s. And I did make an update because reality hit. I said, hey, look, we've got to be agile. We've got to reallocate our portfolios. And we've just got to be realistic with what the narrative is. And the narrative was really focused around Celestia and Dimension. So during that video, I showed you guys how to get rid of your atom in a very fast way. And, I unstaked all but one wallet worth of atom. I think I went from 1,000 something atom to like 100 on one ledger. And, one of the funniest things here is you always get comments like this, and I'm showing this here because, like, I don't care about putting these people on blast. The first person here says, lol, use your mind. The reason I have Celestia and Dimension is because I had Atom. Many more new technology projects will airdrop to Atom first. And then some random person said, I'm just mad because my bags aren't pumping, which obviously, that's not true. I literally share my wallets publicly, like not my like bank wallets and stuff and whatever, but I share like the hot wallet that I use for this account. And somebody else also says, hey, do I understand clearly? Because people get offended, right? And the one thing you got to realize is when you tell the truth, people just get upset because they don't want anyone selling Atom or anything, regardless of whether or not it's the right move. Now, fortunately, these are not the majority. You'll find a ton of people actually saying the same thing. Like if you just go through the comments, literally a lot of people were just like, hey, I agree. How do I do it? Like, what's the next step? Blah, 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 right? Good thinking. Like, this is just the reality of it. And I'm glad to see that most people are open to it. Now, from a pricing perspective, Atom, Celestia, and Dimension have pretty much like kind of traded around the same level. But what has been a little different is we've seen a lot more news. Now, yes, we did see Atom included in the Warp airdrop. That's also going to include Celestia and Dimension. What will be interesting is when they have the eligibility checker to see how much Atom is getting of that pie. I would venture to say that Atom will likely get less than Dimension or Celestia. That's just my opinion based on what I've seen. On top of that, we got Rivals Network, which I think has the coolest ticker. They have Riz, right? So if you're on social media, you've heard the word Riz, right? You use Riz on girls. Riz stands for charisma. But Rivals Network has got this, and hopefully I'll be earning some Riz token because I have been creating a ton of wallets with Dimension. Now, if you haven't already, there is a Galaxy Quest that went up about 2 weeks ago that you can get 2 OATs by completing this campaign. So I've linked that in the description below. This is another tweet from another sort of airdrop farmer, Joshi, focused mainly in IBC. And I think this was probably the 1 or 2 posts this week that didn't contain a lot of the SocialFi from him. But basically, you can see here, we've got a lot of good things to look forward to in Dimension. No surprise there. And I always get asked by a lot of people what exactly is going on with Celestia because it's been quiet. And the idea of quiet is like a few weeks. But I want to sort of remind you guys, I said this yesterday too, Eclipse will be a massive airdrop. Christian Peter rated this an S in our video last week. But the reality is, like, this is going to be monumental. And you always want to look at the technology because the technology is what typically drives airdrops. And it's Celestia listed first, then EigenLayer. So you already know why, and you've sort of seen the reasons as to why I think Dimension and Celestia are my favorite top 2. But we also got EigenLayer, and EigenLayer I'd say is probably the other big narrative, and I think you'd be a fool to not at least look at it. So I have put together a playlist on sort of how you can get involved, including like a EigenLayer airdrop guide, sort of how to use the Wild Network. I'm going to reword this one now because it's now really focused on Renzo. I made a video specifically on EtherFi Season 2 and how to like crush that. And then Pendle Finance, what's the move? So like how do you use Pendle to amplify some of these other tokens? So this is a whole ecosystem and everything. My recommendation is you watch this playlist if you haven't already. And I'm planning on making a video on Zirkit tomorrow to really close the loop. And then I'm probably going to make one final video that incorporates all this stuff. You'll have to have watched some of these things to get it, but how you pick and choose, how you split it up. This is what I've already explained within our private Discord in our master document, but somewhat useful for you guys as well. And if you're like, hey, I don't really care about EigenLayer, well, just take a look at the market. So this is Wales market, and if you look at their sort of dashboard over here, like Renzo, whatever, we know the Athena shards just popped off earlier, and it's like up 600%. If you take a look at EigenLayer, it is sitting at about 28 cents per EigenLayer point. So there's a whole leverage thing that I'm not going to get into in this video, but if you watch my video on Pendle, you'll see what an incredible opportunity is out there. And even if you're not even doing that, one thing I will tell you guys is if you just do the most standard, the most risk-averse version of EigenLayer staking, it's basically you get 1 point or 1 EigenLayer point for every ETH per hour. So 24 EigenLayer per day. That's without doing any of those amplification things. When you do the amplification and you get 30x's and stuff, it goes wild. And maybe I'll do that in the next video. One more thing I do want to mention, if you guys are in this ecosystem, please be careful. Do not respond to Pendle. Pendle has gotten hacked, at least their Twitter has. And I find that one of the hardest things out here is that we can do as much as we can, but they always seem to have a weak link somewhere where like they're not as good on their access for Twitter. So please, guys, be on the lookout for this. This got posted in multiple Discords. But if you go on Pendle, they'll tell you, oh no, don't worry, we've regained full access to our account. Sorry for worrying you all, but everything's under control now. All this tells me is the scammers are getting better. Because you know how you know that they got hacked? When they make it so that no one else can reply. This is probably one of the biggest themes here. If you ever go to anything that like any sort of semblance of a public facing account that you've worked with or that you've used before, and you see that they've restricted replies, almost 99.999% of the time, they're hacked, they're compromised. Do not interact with them because they're trying to scam you, right? They're trying to scam you. Please be careful of this. This is like a telltale sign just by seeing this. These guys are absolute like subhumans, to be honest. Like I wish nothing but the worst to happen to people like this. So please be careful. Do not click on any of their links because they're like, yeah, we got a first airdrop. It's like, remember, all these guys try to do is they try to give you time-sensitive actions, try to create some excitement. Be very careful, okay? Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, and we've talked about this on this channel before, is the Gitcoin Passport. So there's really two things. Cybles and bots beware. I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of people push back on me for saying that I like Gitcoin Passport. I just think it's a really nice way to have your KYC on chain. You don't even have to fill in all the information as such, and it does help protocols. And the reason I'm excited about this is, if you remember, when we go to ZK Sync and we go to their guilds, if you check, they care about if you have a Gitcoin Passport score that's at least 20 or higher. So I think this really matters. And by the way, if you haven't done it already, please, it's not too late. We're still a couple days away from April. Please go in here. I've linked the video below. It's very simple. I've walked through the fastest and easiest way to get those points up. So please check it out. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Just do it one time, and you won't regret it. Next thing, I'm sure you guys don't care about this, but Lanina, the last week of Lanina Park is up. I just blasted through some of the transactions that like took a few seconds. Whenever it took more than that, I just said forget it. So that's just where it is for me. And this is likely the last thing I do for Lanina, given what happened, unless there's something that's very short or some sort of monthly transaction or whatever. So the last thing I want to do is I just want to remind you guys that we have the mint going on for the Parcel airdrop. So I'm giving away 50% 10% to 5 people. I'll be giving USDC or whatever in the EVM chains. It's only lasting for another 6 days and 21 hours, at which point I will do a random draw online. I'll do it like on live with you guys so you can see it. But basically, at this point, one of the things I did was, I took a look over here, got 2.1 million points. If I take a look at Parcel, so this happened earlier today. The sort of market is looking at like, 1.15 cents. So at that price point, that's $3,351, which means that each winner would get about $335 at this point. So if you haven't done that already, you still got a few days, go check that out. And the final thing I do want to mention here is just, hey, there's a big opportunity here with SocialFi. And with SocialFi, I think you guys would be kind of slipping if you didn't give it a shot. I'll be honest, I faded Portal. I faded a bunch of them, and I've seen people get tons of money. So I just think that it's super worth it. And by the way, Latin, I completely agree with you. I think that Pendle is probably the best one. And I have a way higher proportion. I only have 2 ETH in Circuit. I got like 14 or 15 ETH in Pendle right now across a bunch of different solutions. There is another solution that I've been hearing about where you can actually borrow and lend ETH on leverage to sort of work in these protocols, but it's kind of very low TVL, and I will talk about that in a little bit. So, we'll talk about this in another video, likely tomorrow or something, because I want to get to the next one. So if you haven't already, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.